Oh, okay. That's awesome.
All right, good morning, everybody. I think I know most of you by now, at least in the last 5 minutes. But my name is Scott Ashton, I'm CEO here at the Chamber. And we're just really pleased to partner with the City of Oceanside to get the word out about the marine debris reduction ordinance. We are recording today's session, so we will make it available if you miss anything or want to share it with anyone else. It will be on our YouTube channel in the next day or so. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah from the Green Ocean Project, and we'll get rolling.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today and welcome to the Marine Debris Reduction Ordinance. It's a nice big mouthful. I will probably be referring it to the ordinance moving forward, but just as the cover on the first page. Like Scott said, my name is Sarah Davis. I'm also here with Ken Crew and Skylar Stevens. So if you have any questions, you can shout us up during or after or before. I also just wanted to give a big shout out, thank you to Scott with the Chamber and Gamaro with Main Street. The city has partnered with them to kind of help promote this new ordinance and provide some educational resources and information to our business community. Today, I'm just going to go over the workshop or what the marine debris reduction ordinance is, some alternatives, and how it impacts businesses. We're a small group, doesn't need to be super formal. So if something comes up, if you have a question, shout it out, raise your hand, whatever we want to do. There'll be questions at the end. And like Scott said, it'll also be recording. So, if something comes up later, you can always reach out and let us know. So what is the marine debris ordinance? It will prohibit all retail and food service providers in Oceanside from distributing single-use carry-out bags and polystyrene foam products. This was accepted or adopted by City Council in September of 2023, but it has been a long time coming. The City of Oceanside has a very extensive zero waste program. We are part of Green Oceanside, which is what Scott mentioned before, which is all of the city's environmental programs. Our first zero waste plan passed in 2010. And in that plan, we also highlighted the need to reduce some of these products like single-use plastic bags, polystyrene foam to help improve our waterways and our environment. In 2015, we created a program called Love Your Planet. That was a month-long program in the month of February where we worked with businesses and residents to find sustainable alternatives for takeout containers and also promoted not using single-use items like straws upon request. In 2019 or in 2018, we heard from the business community that they wanted it to be a longer full year project rather than just something that happened once a year for the month of February. So we transitioned to Be Disposable Free campaign. And we partnered then with Miracosta College as well as students at OHS to go to some of the interested businesses and provide information about sustainable alternatives. Again, not using those to-go packets, and then also, helping them become, the Surfrider, ocean-friendly restaurants and kind of helping through that process. In 2021, the city updated our zero waste plan. And in that update, it called specifically for this ordinance. And at that time, we passed a resolution to, enhance our programs for a marine debris reduction ordinance. And then the ordinance itself was passed in September. Again, the goal of this is to take away materials that are typically used only once and then discarded into our landfill and find better alternatives that can be used through our collection system. So some quick important dates. I'm going to go into details later on all of this, but just to kind of summarize what we're going on. The polystyrene will be prohibited from distribution starting July of this year, July 1st. So we have about 4 months to get rid of those products that you have in your inventory. And then starting January 1st, single-use carry-out bags will be prohibited from being distributed. And then also, again, I'm going to touch on this later, but education is required to be posted for all businesses for a year from each of these start dates. The city did create some educational materials that businesses can just post. You don't have to create your own. You're more than welcome to create your own if you want. We're not here to tell you what you need to post. But we do have some posters here and they are available on our website for download if people want to use them. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later. So, which businesses must comply? In our ordinance, we are stating that it's all retail and food service providers. What that means is anyone who sells or provides goods to prepared food or products to customers must comply with the ordinance. So we underlined provide in this section because I think that's a key point. You know, if you're a car mechanic and you offer free coffee at your location, and that coffee is in styrofoam cups, those styrofoam cups now need to be transitioned into a more sustainable option. You know, if you're a church and you're providing your goers with a baggie full of goods, at the end of the day, it can't be those single-use bags, and I'll give some examples. But we just wanted to make sure that that's clear, you know, as we're going through this process. I think everybody understands restaurants, you know, big box stores, those kinds of things that need to be part of that group. So food service providers, as in the ordinance, is defined as people or establishments that provide or sell prepared food or beverages on or off its premise within the city of Oceanside. So this only impacts, again, we're just the city of Oceanside, so people, businesses within the city. I did want to highlight a couple that maybe aren't as intuitive. The farmers markets, food vendors, food trucks. So those, you know, pop-up tents or something that might happen at an event, they also need to comply with this ordinance. So no polystyrene foam and no plastic bags to distribute that material. And then the retail establishments, as the ordinance defines it, is an establishment that sells or provides merchandise goods primarily for consumption by the customer and can include things like household items, clothing, supplies, electronics, all that kind of good stuff. This is not an exhaustive list, but you know, just some things to be aware of. You know, hardware stores. We were just talking about that before. Everyone came in. Stores that people come in that have a lot of Oceanside products that are coming in. You know, the product stores, tchotchkes, that kind of stuff. Liquor stores. They all need to comply with this as well. So now that we kind of went over the businesses, let's go over the products. So I want to define what polystyrene is because that might not be a term that everybody knows right off the top of their head. Specifically, polystyrene is a plastic. So it's a plastic that's pumped full of chemicals and that's why it makes it expand and foamy. A lot of people are familiar with a brand of this product, which is styrofoam. So that's that type of product that we're looking at removing. So it's like a lightweight insulated product that helps with that kind of stuff. And we have some examples here. So the ordinance prohibits materials that are made in whole or in part of styrofoam. So some examples are those packing peanuts, egg cartons, cups, to-go containers, those meat trays. All of those will not be allowed to be distributed within the city. We also are requiring or prohibiting the distribution of materials that are made in whole or in part of polystyrene unless it is fully encapsulated. So that's kind of a tricky thing to comprehend, but when you're looking at, you know, those beach coolers that people take that you can often get at liquor stores or the grocery store, that are those single-use ones that you were, you know, running around. Oh, I forgot all my goodies and my snacks, and I need to find something. Those are, you know, the only thing that's in that product is polystyrene foam. That will not be allowed. Let's say that same type of cooler was there, but it's polystyrene, but now it's encompassed with a different type of material. That one can stay. But you know, so coolers, ice chests, pool toys. You know, I know no one here is on the boating side, you know, professionally, but if you do it recreationally, you know, anchors or buoys or anything like that as well will have to be encompassed or encapsulated with something else to encourage that use. So there are some exemptions to this ban. Again, like I stated before, this ban is just for the city of Oceanside. So, you know, products that are packaged outside of the city, we are not regulating. So if you are a grocery store and you purchase meat that is prepackaged outside and it has that, polystyrene tray, food tray, you're still able to sell it as long as it's not packaged within the city of Oceanside. So if you are cutting your own meat or whatever, and you're putting it on that meat tray, it needs to be a different alternative. Again, packing peanuts, if it's something packed in Oregon and it's used with packing peanuts or those big blocks, and shipped down, again, we're not gonna sit there and find any business or do anything like that. Again, it's packaged outside of the city and outside of the scope of that business. The other exemption is medical packaging. So there are some, biological materials that require special packaging to preserve its safety. Again, we are not limiting that. The one caveat for the products packaged outside of the city is eggs. So egg cartons will not be allowed to be in polystyrene foam regardless. So there should no longer be any polystyrene foam cartons of eggs. So alternatives to this product. I did want to highlight some alternatives that we're gonna do, and I can show some samples at the end of this as well. But there are a lot of different types of products that you can use. It is really important for the city to work with businesses on finding materials that are able to be used or recycled within our system. So we don't want businesses going out and finding, green products that they feel like they're doing a good job finding an alternative that still ends up in our landfill. That's not the purpose of the group. So, when you're looking at to-go containers, sometimes you'll see ones that are labeled, compostable or biodegradable or made from plants that are that plastic. Those cannot be manufactured in our system and will end up in the landfill in the gray cart. So here are some alternatives that can be recycled and or used in our organic system. Obviously, our highest and best use, if possible, is to use reusable serviceware. So if you're able to do that at your business, that would be fantastic. Obviously, that's not an option for a lot of people as you move into to-go serviceware. And then the next three that I'm going to highlight are not in any particular order. It's really just the preference of the business. But plastic. So, you want that rigid non-foam plastic. And we do have some examples that I can show, but those to-go containers that you'll see that are, plastic bottoms, the black plastic with the clear top, or the, clear circular container. Those are all great. Customers can scrape those clean and place those in our recycling bin. So those are able to be reused into a new product. Aluminum is also great. There's a bunch of different examples of aluminum trays, which I'm sure most are familiar with. Another example that is just really hard to show in a picture is just with plain aluminum foil. So if you're like a really small taco shop and you want to wrap your tacos in aluminum foil, great. That is wonderful. That material can be scraped clean and put into our recycling bin. And then the last option is paper. And paper is a little bit unique because there's two places that it can go. If it's clean, it can go into our recycling bin. If there's food on it, it can go into our organics bin. So a good example of that is like that greasy pizza box that everyone knows, like you get it home and it sits there. That cannot go into our recycle bin, but can go into our organics bin. So that's a good option as well. And again, I just really did want to highlight, those like bamboo molded fiber stuff is not something that we can process in our system. So we just want to make sure that those are not, those are also oftentimes more expensive. So that's really why we're highlighting them so much, is that a lot of businesses are feeling like they're doing a really great job finding a sustainable alternative, but it is ending up at the same place as, the polystyrene foam or single-use plastic bags. Another thing that I wanted to highlight here is we are one of the last coastal cities in San Diego to implement this type of ordinance. We have very similar ordinance to the city of San Diego itself. So all of your vendors should be very familiar with these types of requirements. So if you reach out to them on your purchasing scale and you're asking, hey, I have this new ordinance, I need to find some sustainable alternatives. I can't use polystyrene foam and single-use plastic bags. They should be able to give you an extensive list. And then also you can kind of give them price points so that they're not trying to, again, sell you those like more expensive green materials that aren't compostable in our system. Okay, so what is a single-use carryout bag? The single-use carryout bag, I think most people are very familiar with. It's that thin plastic bag. Our ordinance says, you know, it can be made of plastic or a similar type of material. The purpose of it is to be used only once. This ordinance in itself has been around for California for a very long time. I'm sure you guys are familiar when you go to the grocery store, you no longer get those types of materials. What our ordinance does is just expands it beyond to additional businesses in Oceanside. So a big question that we get is, you know, can we still provide bags to customers? And you are able to. It just needs to be a reusable or recyclable bag, and you have to charge at least 10 cents. So yes.
Why do you have to charge 10 cents?
Yeah, so that is the, again, we're following the state regulation. So the state regulation requires the 10 cents minimum fee. The purpose of that fee, and I'm again speaking from the state on that side, is that you're giving a product that someone paid for, so they you know, respect that product more. So it's like it's a thought, right? So instead of like before when you were just given a bag, people then are like, oh, I never paid for this, I don't really care. They were littering, throwing it on the ground. If you paid for that product, you take a little bit more ownership. You may use it again, you may throw it in the correct location. It's something that that customer has a little bit more ownership of, rather than just a free product that is provided to the customer. Additionally, a lot of the business community wanted to have that 10 cent fee because it was a product that they were providing to customers for free, and it was costing them a lot of money to, you know, provide bags for free to, you know, through the group. Another side of that too is, you know, as you're going to, I'm using the grocery store because everyone kind of knows that. But you're going to the grocery store, you know, if you remember way before the bag ban, you know, you might have gotten someone who would just like throw 5 items in a bag and you would get like huge amounts of bags. You would leave with 50 bags. Now that it's, you know, you have to pay, customers are a little bit more aware of like, well, I only need 2. I don't need like 4 products at the bottom. Let's fill it up, like make it actually worth what we're taking. So when you're paying for it, that's something that the customers are also more aware of. So it's just that conscious mechanism, and 10 cents is not, you know, like a large fee. The only caveat to that is this fee cannot be charged to customers that are paying with WIC or WIBIT benefits. So that's the women and children and the food benefit programs. Okay, and then are there exemptions to the single-use carryout bag? And there are. There are produce bags. Those are without handles. I think a lot of people are familiar with that, but again, it's a bag that provides like the customer with an ability to carry and protect bulk food or singular food from the rest of that process on the process moving home. There's also product bags. This is, you know, to hold prescriptions or to prevent merchandise from being damaged. The key here is it's preventing merchandise from being damaged within the larger bag. So like, let's say there's something that's like super glittery. I'm just using that because now I can think of that. That would scrape the other product. So you want to cover that like glittery item that can be put into, you know, like those no handle product bags. And then, you know, the larger bag that carries the rest of their goods would need to be that reusable bag. The other one that a lot of people think about, you know, are newspaper bags or bags over your clothes when you go to the dry cleaner. Those are all allowed to still continue. And then product bags can also be used during takeout. So if you have like a soup container or something that might spill as you're providing that to a customer, you can encompass that item in a smaller, you know, product bag with no handles, and then provide it in that larger to-go container for them.
Why would be the reason that those would be exempt? I mean, it's still plastic that can go into our drains and create all the issues that the other bags are creating.
Yeah, again, it's just for this it's a health and safety, requirement, and we are doing the same thing as the state. So it is it's the state regulation that the city is just expanding upon. So, and by expanding upon, we're expanding the businesses that are allowed to use it. We're not changing the rules of the state. So we're not prohibiting more bags. We could say, we're gonna prohibit more produce bags, but when you're going to the grocery store and you're doing those types of things, people like to be able to not have their food touch, the conveyor belts and all, that kind of products or touch other people's hands and washing and all that kind of stuff. So it's a health and safety mechanism, but yeah, that's that purpose. And then again, when you're transporting food, we wanted it to be, something that wasn't going to spill in a customer's car or cause problems with people during that process. So really quick on the bags, again, I think people are pretty familiar with the different options. But the single-use bag is that thin one-time use. And the options are to provide a recyclable or reusable bag. The recyclable bag, if it is paper, it has to be 100% paper so that it can be recycled. And the reusable bag just has to be a material that is 2.25 milliliters thick, can hold up to 25 pounds for at least 125 uses. Again, you don't need to really know those specific details. Vendors do know that information. California has had this regulation for several years. They're very familiar with those requirements. But we're just, again, piggybacking and expanding further upon some of those regulations from the state. Okay, so I did talk about educational posting. We do require that businesses post information for their customers for at least 1 year. Since we have those 2 dates that are kind of overlapping, if you have material, or this would impact you on both, I just want to make sure that's clear that you're going to have posting from July of 2024 through January of 2026. That first one requires it through July of 2025, and then the single-use carry-out bag goes through January of 2026. We are not dictating where that needs to be in your business. It just needs to be somewhere that your customers can see it. So it can be at the point of sale, it can be on your window, it can be on a menu, any location that you feel like is visible for customers. Again, there are posters that we have that you can just post at the front of your store, that you can take today and or download from our website. You're again more than welcome to create your own information on that. And the city has, other information, educational materials on our website that you can also download as well. And that website is greenoceanside.org. And then you can go to the solid waste and recycling webpage. Oh, if you do have any of this material, there is a QR code on the material that goes directly to the website that has all of this information. So, if you are posting it with our material and customers have questions, you can just kind of point them at that, and they can go read and contact the city and do all that kind of stuff. So you're not having to engage on that way. And then how will this ordinance be enforced? So this is enforced through the Oceanside code enforcement. It is on a complaint basis, which means, the public will reach out to the city if they see that a business is not in compliance. There is not going to be Oceanside code enforcement officers driving around checking businesses if they're complying. And then we are following our standard citation administration code for this, which basically just means if a complaint comes in, you will be contacted by a code enforcement officer. They'll come out and take a look and see what's going on. If they find that you are not in compliance, you receive an administrative letter and a date that you need to make sure that you are compliant by. And then if you are not, that could result in administrative fines following that. If people are interested specifically on this section of the code, it is section 1.14.1.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's section 1.14.1. And it just is procedures for administrative citations. in our code, so you can kind of get all the gooey details there. So like I kind of mentioned before, this is our exact website. It's very long, for the marine debris ordinance, but you can go to greenoceanside.org or scan, that QR code. We have a bunch of educational materials. We have an FAQ document. Today's presentation will be recorded. We're gonna hold additional workshops. We have some notices and papers. There's a the template that I showed earlier about the alternatives. We have that listed on there. So if you want to go back, as well as more detail on items that we encourage businesses potentially to not use so that it isn't going into the landfill. We have all that kind of information on our website, and also ways to contact us. So if you're going through the process and you're working with your vendor or they're not providing great information, you can always reach out to the city and we'd be happy to help you through that process. And since we're talking about this type of ordinance, I also wanted to do a reminder about additional California state law that is currently in place. It's called Skip the Stuff, and it requires that all food service providers not distribute single-use items and food serviceware to customers, either upon request or at a centralized location where customers can take that. So that includes silverware, straws, packets, all of those items. You cannot just give them to a customer. You're supposed to ask and or give them at a centralized location. So some of you may have noticed that sometimes when you're going through like the food delivery services now, you have to like click a certain button that says, you know, I want my silverware and napkins and whatever. And that's kind of how that system goes into place. But just as a friendly reminder on that one. And then reiterating the posting or the dates again, July 1st is the polystyrene foam, and then January 1st is the plastic bags. So again, you have about 4 months to go through all that polystyrene at your locations. And hopefully what you can do is start looking and talking to your vendors and looking at your ordering schedule to make sure that you're hitting those dates and you don't have extra polystyrene hanging around. So we had some questions, but are there other questions? Yes.
When you say the packing peanuts, does that mean when you go to UPS, they won't pack your stuff with peanuts anymore?
Correct. And in Oceanside. So if you want to go to, you know, San Marcos or another city that doesn't have one, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, in Oceanside, they will not. There's alternatives. So there's different types of ways to pack it without those packing peanuts. That, you know, you can use. Sometimes, you know, you get Amazon boxes that are covered with those like just paper, right? That's put inside. So it just depends on what those, it just needs to be an alternative to polystyrene.
And with a lot of the peanut types that are peanut material that are made of cornstarch or other things so there's non-polystyrene alternatives. And there's also a lot more use of those little, I think they call it little air pillows, but the bags and there's a lot of things they can do with the packaging.
One quick
Yes.
question, I think at the bottom of the last screen or the last shot, it said something about that these posters need to be up for a year, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
And that is effective January 1st or effective now?
No, July 1st of 2024
Yeah,
for
but
polystyrene,
the bags,
and then the bags is January 1st.
so you posted January the 1st and it's gotta be up for a year.
Correct. Okay, and I'm gonna go over some examples too, just to like reiterate. We have 2 thank you bags that everyone gets. This is the single use one. I did forget to mention some exemptions on this as well, like dog. A lot of people say like, oh, you know, I can't buy the dog food bags anymore. Those are also still up. This is the sticker reusable plastic bag. Again, paper bag, and then these are the more expensive reusable bags. Again, minimum of 10 cents, but you can charge up to however much you want.
Do we have to charge?
Yes,
By law, we have to charge.
yes. And then to-go containers, we talked about some plastic alternatives. We have this, you know, plastic to-go container like this. We have this plastic to-go container. These are both great alternatives. This is also considered that plastic to go. So you got that clamshell option. We have those paper containers, so these are those paper boxes, you know, these can be recycled and or put into our compost. Same with these type of things, you could do this and wrap the top with aluminum foil. These I bought at the dollar store, you can get them, you know, for fairly inexpensive as an option. You don't wanna go through that vendor. And then again, this is, plastic, but, you know, we use this as an aluminum foil option. They also do these as like aluminum foil with a plastic lid that you can provide as a to-go container on that.
So one, and maybe this seems, at the Mexican restaurant to go,
Mhm.
usually they put it in a small little paper bag.
Yep,
Do they have to charge for the small little paper bag?
yes, they will have to charge for that to go back, yes.
There was a specific size that they had to charge for. When you go to the grocery store and you get something that's less than the Trader Joe's bag that you have, you don't get charged.
If you're using a produce bag, you won't get charged. If they're not charging you for a bag
It's a
as a to take out, they should be. There isn't a size on the product, it's what you're using the product for. So as, again, with those exemptions that we talked about, those are the same exemptions as the state. So if it is, you know, if you're going to the pharmacy, they're allowed to provide you a bag, with no fee. If you're in the produce section, you're allowed to do that. Like I said, if you're protecting, so this is what I was talking about, right? Like sometimes it comes with like soup. And so you can wrap it in that smaller produce bag or product bag, and then to go, but, the material that you're taking all of your stuff away from needs to be charged, or you don't take a bag. That's the other option from the customer, is to not take one. Any other questions?
So there's no limitations on this, on packaging, what, and the charges, there's no limitations on all that?
No, this type of packaging, you don't have to charge. We have businesses that currently do charge for packaging. So you are able to charge, if you want to. We have businesses that went this route and then just increased their prices so that you're not seeing a charge fee on that. Again, we're not dictating on that side what you have to or cannot do. So the business is able to do whatever. And also with the bags, you know, if businesses wanted to charge more, they're more than welcome to do that as well.
And is this, so you said this is really coming down from the state. Did they give us a deadline to implement programs like this, the state?
No, so the state bag ban is what I was referring to. That's currently in play today. We are just expanding that from just the larger stores to all food distribution and retail stores.
So Oceanside is expanding it, not the state.
Correct, and most of San Diego County. We are the last.
The coastal.
Yes, and the city of San Diego, which is obviously partly coastal, but also a large part is not. But yeah, at the smaller cities of the state, the coast.
But if I understand correctly, the state's moving in that direction, right? And we're just trying.
I will say yes. I mean, there have been regulations that have been brought up for all of this for several years, and you know, eventually I'm sure one will stick. I just don't want to give a deadline of like, hey, there's one that passed, but this is happening, or they're pushing us. That's not what's occurring. But yes, there's even a current state bag or regulation to like get rid of these types of bags. So, we're not going there with this regulation, and that's not our goal at this point. So, yes.
Due to a lot of restaurants having access to Restaurant Depot and San Marcos,
Mhm.
That's gonna pose a challenge to people that are buying their products there.
Mhm.
I feel like gonna be a lot of repeat offenders, and then I've been asked about the fines. What are the fines that look like? They keep.
The fines are in that administrative code. It's the same administrative fine. There's no difference. Again, Restaurant Depot is a huge company. I know that they're in San Marcos, but if you go to Restaurant Depot and you ask a sales provider, like, these are my requirements, I can't do that, they can help you figure out what you're gonna do. So, It's just gonna take a little bit of thought at the first couple times to kind of switch up and figure out what works for your business. Again, there's a lot of options from not a crazy price increase to something that's a lot more depending on what you're looking for. And so, those repeat offenders, it's, again, our initial contact to those customers is a code enforcement officer coming and looking at the restaurant or location and making sure that, hey, it wasn't someone who was just calling and complaining. You then get a notice and it gives you a date on when you need to make that switch over, and then they will come back and do a site visit. And if you're still using it, that's when a potential fine could occur. So you have a lot of that process, and then as you kind of go through that, if you continue to be a repeat offender on that, those fines increase as you aren't compliant. Again, with the same process like any city code issue, there's no new fines or fees associated with this ordinance.
I know I'm asking a fantasy question, but why can't cities like you and San Diego and all that get together with the county? And even heaven forbid the state, so that the ordinance can be covered everywhere and not have all these little loopholes.
So that's why we modeled our ordinance off of the city of San Diego's for that reason, because we wanted to have people that had these types of ordinances. The city of San Diego is obviously the biggest city in our county. So we modeled it after them. The dates that it's going to into effect are the same dates that all of the exemptions from the other cities go into place. So a lot of these other cities that have similar bans have had them for longer, but they've had exemptions where, a restaurant can apply for something, you're exempt for a certain amount of time. But all of those expire on that July 1st, 2024 date and January 1st, 2025 date. So what we did was modeled it so that if you have multiple locations in San Diego County, it should all be similar, at least for the city of San Diego and Oceanside. We did look at some of the other ones, but some of them go further than what we're going for, and so we're not doing that for us.
So charging for the bag in San Diego is right now a lot.
The state of California.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, for restaurants.
Yeah. Right? No? Oh,
No, in San Diego, their ordinance covers the single-use plastics, so all the polystyrene items and, the cups and trays and food service items and the docking and mooring buoys and all that. Their ordinance does not cover the retail plastic bags. It's covered by the state law with all the grocery stores and, all the other items like that Sarah had mentioned.
So right now, any restaurant in San Diego that offers that bag should be charging for it?
No,
no, that's what he's saying.
no, in San Diego, they don't. In some of the other local cities, they do, with some of the individual ordinances. But in San Diego, if you went to a restaurant and did takeout, you would not be able to take a polystyrene item, but it could be in a plastic bag with handles with no charge.
Right, I mean, again, it's not perfect, these are things that we were approached, right, from the public. We've had several council workshops, like I said at the beginning, there's been several reiterations of the zero waste plan that have had this direction, so this was what the public came to the city asking for us to do. And part of that direction was to expand the bag ban to all retail agencies and not allow for any exemptions.
So one more question on the bag then. If I have to charge it, does it have to be itemized as a charge for 10 cents?
Yeah.
So that I can prove that I'm charging for this?
Yeah,
And when you charge the 10 cents, doesn't have to go back to the state?
no. I mean, I don't know for the state bag ban, I don't believe so, but
For the state, it's the same as the
Yeah.
Oceanside ordinance where the 10 cents, it has to be charged, but it's kept by the individual organization that's charging, that's providing the item or the service, and it's to cover the cost of the bag itself or managing the bags or, just things associated with that.
It's not like a, it's not like.
But yeah,
a-
it's not remitting it to the state at all.
It's not
just-
like
It's
your
literally
water.
just, if you have a store and you charge 10 cents per bag, it's, you're keeping that 10 cents and either using it for your administrative costs or the bags, or just the things that go, the things that go along with it.
Because I was under the impression that grocery stores, the reason they agreed to that is because they got half the money and the state got half the money. That's not true.
No, the law that came through, the stores keep it. There was legislation. It was kind of confusing when the state law went into effect, because I think there were 2 different items on the ballot. But there was a proposal to make something like that, where it became more of a, I guess for lack of a better words, I'll say revenue sharing.
Right,
And that did not go through.
okay.
And it stayed with the intent of the original state legislation that passed, that where it was just, there was the 10-cent fee, and then the cost stayed with the store.
They even monitor
It's, again, it's not a great, the cities and counties are responsible for implementing enforcement. So, you know, for Oceanside, I'm gonna speak only for Oceanside, we do it the exact same way that we're gonna do this ordinance, which is on a complaint basis. So if someone's going to a store and they're giving that back for free and they wanna make a complaint there, that's how we respond.
that. Have you guys gotten a lot of complaints?
When it first originally occurred, yes, and then also during COVID, when that was transitioned out, yes. So that,
Complaints that they
Well,
weren't charging.
Yeah.
correct? Because I would think that complaints would be that they are.
They are
charging.
no, I will say that, like I said before, there's, we have a lot of,
I'm gonna complain if I'm not getting charged.
we have a very extensive, like, environmental, you know, community in
Right.
Oceanside. Again, this ordinance came from the Oceanside community. It's not something that is brought on by city staff. We're not here being like overzealous and trying to put in new implementations. We actually, that's why it took so long, right? Is like we did do a lot of education and resource building from 2015 to now, so for the last 9 years, with businesses to do it at a more like trial basis or voluntary basis. Like, what do you want to do? How do you want to work? And, you know, the community came to the city and really pushed for an ordinance, for both of these products, so. You can watch the city council meeting, there was several, like the whole council was full of residents and a lot of people promoting this. And nobody came to say otherwise, so, you know, just wanted to reiterate that again, it is a very community push focused. And when we did do workshops before, because the Oceanside did do a bag ban that got overturned when the state passed theirs, we did talk about fees at that point because there wasn't a state fee, and the overwhelming response we got from both the business community and residential community was a charge for 10 cents. And that was a long time ago. I want to say like 2017, 2016. So 10 cents is a lot less now than it was then.
And I'm all for that, but I also believe that if the retailer decides that they don't want to charge, that should be an option. At the end of the day, I'm the one that's losing the 10 cents, not the guest.
Again, the purpose of the fee is what I talked about before. Again, it's not about who's getting money, who's not. It's about that person taking ownership and realizing what it is that they're taking on a product rather than not. I think it's a little bit different when you're talking about food or where, like your plate, obviously when it's coming in, but when you're getting those other types of materials, it's just that thought process on that side. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I do have up on the screen, Rocio's not here. She's also another city staffer. Those are contact information if you guys want to reach out or have any questions. It's the general city solid waste Oceanside email, and then our customer care line, and they can transfer us to whoever is available. And that's our website up there as well. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to help you or walk you through whatever it is that you need. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.